Below ground, clouds of choking dust from mummified animals fill the air. Cat mummies, like all animal offerings, were considered sacred and had to be buried properly. But this tomb is a disturbing and chaotic mess. Here, human and animal bones lie jumbled together.
So the Valley of the Kings is an extraordinary place because it's the home of the tombs of the rulers of the great imperial age of ancient Egypt.
Since the late 1700s, archaeologists have been scouring every inch of the valley in a quest for knowledge and treasure. Over the years, they've uncovered the underground tombs of at least 20 pharaohs, as well as crypts for dozens of royal wives, children, and leading courtiers. Why did the pharaohs of the New Kingdom choose to bury their dead deep underground and not in pyramids like the earlier kings of Egypt?
Presumably, pharaohs were buried with a lot of material from the beginning of time. And traditionally, they had been buried in these massive, great structures, these pyramids, that were, of course, very obvious.
The pyramid in particular was a real marker of what was underneath. So if your burial chamber had a pyramid on top, it's saying to robbers, here be jewels.
The Valley of the Kings was meant to be the New Kingdom's solution to tomb robbing.
So the classic New Kingdom tombs in the Valley of the Kings consist of a series of passageways and descending corridors leading to the burial chamber.
That was supposed to be a secret, hidden and protected place where he could rest for eternity together with all of his stuff.
But just like the pyramids before, it didn't work. Over the millennia, the promise of riches had led to all but Tut's tomb being ransacked.
Below ground, Hamada finds precious treasures, another sign that many of these people were a cut above the average Joe. This statue is a magical talisman. It represents a god believed to protect the spirits of the dead, called Ptah-Sokar.
He was one of the main gods of Saqqara. The name of Saqqara was derived from the god Ptah-Sokar. We found hundreds of them.
Statues of the god became very fashionable among the elite at this time.
Another one.
In June 2013, a similar one from a private collection went for $40,000 at auction. Ordinary Egyptians could not afford treasures like these. But the rich used their wealth to try to guarantee their journey to the afterlife.
My God, a gilded one. I have never seen a gilded face in a great condition like this one.
The coffin of Ta-Gemi also reveals how they plastered their coffins with magical spells, prayers from the Book of the Dead.
The ancient Egyptians had only one anxiety. They believed that there was a hereafter. The anxiety was caused because they did not know how to go from here to there. So the Book of the Dead is a handbook with all of the answers, a quick guide on how to get to the afterlife safely and successfully.
These expensive treasures reveal how the way rich Egyptians buried their dead started to change during the late period. It became more commercialized.
The operation of mummification and burial, it is a religious one, number first, but also it is a business, number two. Many people deal with this operation. The carpenters, the people in the market, the people who make statues, the priests, the guards, the people who take care of the mummification operation itself, all is a business.
So how big was the scale of this business? Hamada thinks the answers lie buried within the new chamber. Over the next few days, Hamada's team carefully clears the burial chamber. The work is slow and painstaking. But what started with one giant coffin is now a megatomb with over 100 coffins that fill every inch of space. Burying all these people required a massive operation. These coffins show how Saqqara was home to a huge industry of death, where the dead were the customers.
Saqqara had a huge funerary industry, and this was really a money-making endeavor. We know that they had personnel to sell space in the tomb or tombs. We know that they were selling mummification. We know that there were priests involved doing the rituals. So all of this cost a lot of money.
This megatomb is the largest concentration of coffins ever unearthed in Egypt, 3 times bigger than anything previously found.
For almost a century, Tutankhamun's dazzling treasures displayed in the Cairo Museum have told the story of the boy king's short life. But now, as all of his 5,000 treasures are being brought together at the new Grand Egyptian Museum, another far stranger tale is emerging. Not of Tutankhamun's life, but of his supernatural experiences after death.
The ancient Egyptians weren't obsessed with death. They were obsessed with living, and they wanted to live the best life they could, and they wanted that to continue if they could after death.
Egyptologists believe this is why Tutankhamun's tomb was crammed full of everything from golden statues to simple loincloths. His tomb was a colossal supernatural suitcase, packed with everything he'd need to help him navigate the afterlife and live there forever. But what did Tutankhamun expect to find when or if he got there? For Egyptologist Salima Ikram, the answer lies in some of the smallest items discovered in his tomb.
You needed to eat in the afterlife, and Tutankhamun was a teenage boy, so clearly he wanted to be well supplied. And so he had bread, he had wine, he had pomegranates, little green onions, and garlic. So he could flavor his food or munch on the green onion. And there are dates, there are piles of dates here. But what's really amazing about Tutankhamun's dates is that they were pitted, so he wouldn't have to chew around and throw out the pit. So these are really posh dates for the afterlife.
And these were just the appetizers. For the entree, Tutankhamun could choose from an all-you-can-eat buffet of Egypt's finest meats.
He had ribs, he had large joints of meat coming from the foreleg of cattle. And there are all these boxes of mummified poultry. Often the containers are made in the shape of what they are supposed to contain.
It was a feast fit for a pharaoh, pre-cooked, pre-packed, and preserved for eternity.
The coffin was sitting on a pile of rubble, containing several artifacts that more closely matched the age of the tomb.
The tomb was filled with a more or less horizontal layer of debris. It was a bit higher here, and then it turned more or less horizontal like this.
Under the rubble, there was a grim discovery: the mutilated remains of a second body. A mummy that had been completely unwrapped and dismembered. The design of KV-64 meant it was probably built for a member of the royal family.
Here you can see the egg was wrapped in separately, which is a characteristic of the New Kingdom. The fingers were bandaged separately, the arms. You can see the cut that was performed in order to take out all the inner organs and stuffed with very, very thin linen bandages in rolls.
Bickel turned to a colleague 2,000 miles away in Switzerland at the University of Zurich. Professor Frank Rulli is an expert in using state-of-the-art medical technology to unlock the secrets of ancient mummies.
Here we have the pelvic region, and you actually see part of the right forearm as well, part of the right hand. And we clearly see it's a more female-ish pelvis, wide pelvis.
All the evidence suggests this was a woman who died around the age of 40 and was a member of the Egyptian elite. But despite all her wealth and status, her body was badly mutilated after death in a surprising act of sacrilege. For Suzanne Bickel, this act of willful desecration can mean only one thing: tomb raiding.
The mummy was entirely wrapped in tens of layers of linen wrappings. And this was taken apart because the robbers were certainly expecting, and perhaps they were lucky, to find jewelry or precious amulets. Once a mummy is unwrapped, it becomes very fragile, nothing to hold the joints together. The head had fallen off. Of course, this is the most fragile part of our bodies. And once it is not held together by the wrappings, the head will just fall off.
Like almost every tomb in the Valley of the Kings, KV-64 had been the victim of grave robbery.
Dashur. 15 miles south of Cairo, it's one of Egypt's most mysterious royal graveyards. Today, only a handful of pyramids survive. But the remains of many more lie hidden beneath the desert sands. Egyptologist Dr. Chris Naunton has spent his career hunting for these lost tombs. He has come to Dashur, where Egyptian archaeologists have made a thrilling discovery.
This is a pretty exciting moment. We're in it's an amazing kind of lunar landscape. This is the Bent Pyramid, just slightly closer to us, and what's known as the Red Pyramid behind it. But we're going to a much less well-known part of the site, where something very intriguing, to say the least, has been uncovered just very recently.
This crater was the site of a large quarry, until workers stumbled upon blocks of finely cut limestone buried deep in the sand. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities began to excavate. Excavations have revealed a passage that once led from the entrance to deep under the pyramid. The stairs lead to an underground complex, the heart of the pyramid. These huge blocks are protecting the only access to the chamber and any mummy and treasure that may be hidden inside. And unlike any other pyramid found so far, it still appears to be sealed. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquity has granted permission to raise the capstone to reveal what lies within. Finally, after 3 days of effort, the tomb gives up its secrets for the first time in almost 4,000 years. But what's inside is a shock.
Oh, goodness me.
Its contents are in disarray. The archaeologists hope to be unveiling treasure. But now, there's a mystery to solve.
There are two questions here that we need to start trying to answer. One is, who was buried here? Who was this pyramid built for? And then secondly, how is it that an apparently completely sealed, unbreached burial chamber comes to have been disturbed?
It's becoming clear they've stumbled upon an ancient crime scene. Someone got here first and robbed the burial chamber. In Cairo, Egyptologist Dr. Yasmin El-Shazly is investigating the mystery of a newly discovered pyramid. Fragments of wood found in the burial chamber have been pieced together. They form a coffin lid with a beautifully carved face.
Coffins normally had features that were similar to the owner, but idealized, because that's what they would look like for eternity.
The restoration has revealed something astonishing. This isn't a king. It is, in fact, a mystery woman.
She's wearing the Hathor wig that was very popular during the Middle Kingdom and was only worn by women.
The answer may lie with another object found in her grave. A chest, decorated with hieroglyphs. Could they reveal the mystery woman's name?
What's extremely important about this chest is that we know that it belonged to a princess, because here it says Satnesu, daughter of the king, and then it would be followed by the name. The name is the most damaged area, which is very frustrating. The ancient Egyptians believed that the worst thing you could possibly do to anyone was erase their name. If we managed to find her name and say it again, then she would achieve immortality.
It's not just her name that's a mystery. Discovering a princess in a pyramid is highly unusual.
This kind of pyramid design is specific to a king. It's not what you'd expect a junior member of the royal family to be in. Normally, a princess would simply have a shaft tomb in a chamber at the bottom of it, which makes the whole thing a real mystery.
To understand more about the princess, the team must investigate the age she lived in. Egypt's Middle Kingdom. These models from the time give us a window into her world. Stretching from 2030 to 1650 BC, it's known as Egypt's Classical Age. It produced the first historical novel called The Story of Sinuhe, and new techniques of working with gold to create the finest jewelry of the ancient world. Locked in Cairo Museum are the treasures of another Middle Kingdom princess.
We have here the crown of Princess Khnumet from Dahshur. It's made out of gold and inlaid with semi-precious stones. And here at the front, you have a branch with very, very intricate leaves and flowers. This necklace is very delicate and very intricately decorated. This, for example, is the symbol of life, the Ankh. And this is a very famous amulet as well. It's the Eye of Horus that helps protect the wearer. The newly discovered tomb probably contained material very similar to this, a lot of gold, which is probably why it would have been robbed a long time ago.
The Institute of Evolutionary Medicine in Zurich is one of the world's most advanced research centers for the study of mummification. At this facility, Frank Rulli analyzes Egyptian mummies to discover how ancient embalmers tried to make the deceased immortal.
We are looking for the way it was mummified. We are looking for individual data which help us to write the biography of the person, like sex, age, but also the diseases, the degree of preservation. It's very nicely wrapped. It's the typical kind of wrapping with the head and the feet being so prominent. So it's probably about roughly 2,000 years old.
The researchers will perform a series of scans and examinations. Their objective is to understand the specific technique used by the embalmers. The first mystery to solve is who is hiding under all these layers of linen.
Every mummy is different, so it's like every time opening a Christmas gift, you don't know what to expect. It looks like rather a young individual.
Young adult.
Young adult, and probably female based on the pelvis. Here we have the hands in front of the pelvis, and this is a very dense material, so it's probably a ring.
So it's most likely a jewelry, a ring.
As the practice of mummification progressed, more people could afford the process.
In the Old Kingdom, time of the pyramid builders, it was more of an elite way of treating the bodies, whereas later on it was more of a democratization. So more and more people actually were able to be at least partially mummified.
As mummification became more widespread, it drove the emergence of more sophisticated techniques, notably in the products used for preservation.
They often use bitumen. They have resins, conifer resins, for example, beeswax. There are multiple components, up to several thousand components. That changed over time, and that probably changed also between different tissue types. More in the later periods, like New Kingdom, end of the New Kingdom, they actually put the material under the skin to actually give a bit more of a life-like appearance.
This woman was mummified some 2,500 years after the pharaoh Khufu. It's proof of just how important the ancient Egyptians believed mummification to be.
We may never know his real name, but archaeologists call him Kroghan Man, because he was found here, under the shadow of a place called Kroghan Hill, located in central Ireland. It's a potential clue in figuring out who he was, because Kroghan Hill was once the center of an ancient Irish kingdom.
When I came along to view the bog body down here in the bog, one immediately saw Kroghan Hill, and one immediately knew the significance of this hill. This is the inauguration hill of the kings of this region.
During the Iron Age, Ireland was divided into hundreds of kingdoms, each ruled by a different king, crowned in sacred spaces or on hills like this one. What role did Kroghan Man play in this ancient kingdom?
When we look closer at the hands of this individual, we can see that his fingernails are really very well trimmed, they're manicured, and they're clean. There's no way that this person has been working in the fields doing heavy manual work.
There were no scars or calluses on the hand. So this was a man who did not do manual labor. The other thing that was noted was that he had beautifully manicured fingernails. This indicates that this is a man of high social status.
So Kroghan Man probably wasn't a warrior or a farmer. But there's another clue that might tell us who he was.
On his left arm, you can see he had an armlet. And it's an armlet made of plated leather with copper alloy mounts on it as well. The wearing of armlets, we believe, are indicative of high status. And in the Irish tradition, armlets are all associated with solar worship.
Archaeologists believe these hilltop monuments are strong evidence of sun and sky worship during the Iron Age. And the metal clips on Kroghan Man's armlet could represent the sun, and perhaps indicate he was a religious leader known as a druid.
They were very much a separate elite class. They kept themselves to themselves. It would take up to 20 years to learn to be a druid. So once you were chosen to become a druid, you'd be taken off at a young age and you would be taught the secrets. And then you would come back to society and be revered as this unknown person who has great power and links to the gods and to nature.
strong, high status, and possibly a religious leader. The next step for investigators is to piece together how he died.
Between a coffin and the wall, Hamada spots something unusual.
Oh no, what a moment. A box of Ushabtis. A complete box for Ushabtis.
These tiny figurines, called shabtis, are miniature servants. The Egyptians believed they would spring to life and look after the deceased in the next world. Shabtis came in all shapes and sizes and can reveal vital clues about their owners. But the team has never seen such a huge collection of them in one place.
برصته كده برصته جميل زي ما هو كده بصندوق ده في صندوق الخشب بتاعه ده الصندوق اللي جوه زي ما هو كده
For me, it is the first time to see a box. For me, for near to the coffin.
Most people were buried with one or two magical servants. To find a complete set is extremely rare. The owner of this box would have been rich. Shabtis were luxury items and expensive despite their small size. These Shabtis also reveal how their owners saw the world around them. That's because the Egyptians developed their concept of life after death from what they experienced every day. People believed the afterlife took the form of a field of reeds. This was an idealized version of the ancient Egyptian landscape where the crops never failed.
Ancient Egyptians were imagining their afterlife probably the same as their life every day because this was just a mirror of their existence. So the afterlife was not much different.
Ancient Egypt was far from the desert world we might imagine today. The land along the River Nile was some of the most fertile in the ancient world. Their vision of a rustic afterlife reveals just how central agriculture was in Egyptian society.
Every Egyptian in the afterlife was compelled to work. Kings, queens, princes, nobles, men, women, all had to perform this task.
Egypt's elite were horrified by the prospect of doing manual labor in the afterlife. So they developed the Shabtis to do their chores for them. They even made the Shabtis' faces look like their own.
The Shabtis were basically field workers. So what we can see is that they were equipped with the tools that were needed for any kind of agricultural work. And this was probably a reflection of the true reality in Egypt.
Prayers detailing the work they were expected to do are inscribed on the Shabtis.
O Shabtis, if one summons Pa'ef Chow Em Awi Imen to do all the work that is done in the hereafter, whenever the request is made, here I am, you shall say.
All the Shabtis, they are ready in any time if they asked him to do something.
Below ground, clouds of choking dust from mummified animals fill the air. Cat mummies, like all animal offerings, were considered sacred and had to be buried properly. But this tomb is a disturbing and chaotic mess. Here, human and animal bones lie jumbled together. Why did the priests fling together these sacred relics? Profit, not religion, may have been the driving factor. Cat mummies were available for purchase.
The priests of this temple, they made like a business to sell the small statues, amulets. So they used all these tombs as the storerooms to keep the mummified cats, because the priests in this time mummified the cats by millions.
The huge enthusiasm for these offerings created a massive logistical problem. The temple was too small to bury them all. So the chiefs of the cat cult reused ancient tombs beneath the temple that were already many hundreds of years old. For the Greeks, animal mummies were a strange and exotic custom, one they bought into with enthusiasm.
In the Greek period, animal mummies were so popular. In Greece, usually you would have the tradition of animal offerings, but in ancient Egypt, that was not sort of the main tradition. So when Greeks came here, they really liked them. They were like maybe little mini teddy bears, and then people would be going to buy them.
Far from dying out, animal worship reached new heights when the Greeks arrived in Egypt. The Greeks became devoted to one animal cult in particular, that of the Apis bull. Priests would mummify and bury an entire bull, believed to be the incarnation of the god.
When the bull died, he was embalmed. He was taken across the river, along a great processional, up into the Sokar necropolis, and he was buried in a vault.
So what was the scale of the animal cult business in the Greek era? Hamada has discovered a series of new mummies that are mysteriously different. They don't look like cats.
All of these mummies belongs to a cat, but those 3 ones, I'm not sure about them.
Hamada wants to X-ray one of the more unusually shaped cat mummies. The results are a surprise. Inside this one, there's no cat at all.
There is no bones inside this. So what we have here is just wrapping. So it's a fake one and nothing inside.
The fake cat mummy could be a scam. Were the priests cashing in on an unsuspecting tourist? There might be another explanation, based on Egyptian beliefs.
In ancient Egypt, there was this strange concept. Once you write something, it's there. So imagine if somebody could not afford a mummy. What are they gonna do? They're going to create something that could look like a mummy, much cheaper, much easier, and then offer it. You write on it and it's a mummy.
These strange mummies reveal how Egypt's ancient customs seduce the new Greek arrivals, converting them to the new religion while creating massive demand for sacred artifacts.